This is Jason JROCK Houston, and you're listening to This Is Metal on Chaotic Riffs Magazine, and you can find us on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com. And once again, my co-host is my good friend Joe Lawson from the band Scream Kings and Dragonlore. Welcome to This Is Metal once again, and I want to thank you for co-hosting the show with me once again. Joe, how are you doing today?
Good. My pleasure, as always, my friend.
Now, when we ended the show last time, you and I discussed that, hey, why don't we talk about all things QUEENSRYCHE? And this is an interesting time to be talking about QUEENSRYCHE for a number of reasons. First of all, I don't know if anybody's aware of it, 2020 marks the 30th anniversary of Empire. And before all this COVID-19 stuff came up, they were planning to release like a special 30th anniversary edition. I guess that's been put on hold until next year, and I don't know what the actual band plans to do about it, but I know Jeff Tate was going to do like a 30th anniversary where he was going to perform the entirety of Empire like live, so that's something I guess to look forward to.
Absolutely. You know, without a doubt, I would say Empire is probably their most chart-topping album as far as popularity goes.
Yeah.
It was very successful. They had a hit single with Silent Lucidity. The band received 3 Grammy Awards from that album. The drummer, Scott Rockefeller, received an individual Grammy nomination himself.
Wow.
They were all over MTV. I mean, it was a huge hit, for sure.
Yeah, and oddly enough, this was following Operation Mindcrime, which in itself was a huge success for the band. But this I don't know if it was as big, but it was I'll say just as big. And like you said, I think they had a little more commercial success with this, especially with Silent Lucidity and all the other tracks being all over MTV.
Yeah, they did. It was a more modest effort. It was more refined, more commercial. But it was still QUEENSRYCHE, and it was still great songwriting and a killer album.
That's what I
love it.
Yeah,
I still do.
Yeah, that's what I was reading on the Wikipedia tonight, was that this album in particular, critics loved it just as much as the fans, and they said the reason for that is this album, more than any other QUEENSRYCHE album, was a step up in the songwriting, where it was really more album oriented towards like just writing great songs, like for the album, and it didn't have to necessarily be like a metal sounding song, to be on the album.
True. I mean, I'm an old school metalhead, and I love Empire, and I love all the stuff that they're doing now. I mean, I'm just a QUEENSRYCHE fan all the way around, but I love the old stuff, man. Rage for Order, Operation Mindcrime, Warning, all that old stuff was just so awesome and so amazing. They were hungry, and you could hear it in the recordings. It was very, very unique. QUEENSRYCHE is such a unique band,
Yeah, see, they're one of those bands that are very hard to pigeonhole now. Like you're saying, I loved all the stuff like on Rage for Order. That was kind of my introduction to QUEENSRYCHE back in 1986 when that came out. And I heard, I'll never forget, hearing Walk in the Shadows. That was all over, like metal radio here in LA. They used to have a station here in Los Angeles, Long Beach, California, where I'm from to be exact, called KNAC, and they still have like a Facebook page, even though KNAC hasn't been in existence for years. But they supported metal back in the day when nobody else would, and they had these bumper sticks they'd give out. KNAC 105.5. We play kick-ass music, but they were all over the metal radio, and I think they even were on KMET, which was a big LA radio station back in the day.
Right, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a band that just has such a long history and so many great albums. They really do. I mean, there's been albums that me personally, I wasn't a big fan of, or I didn't care for, but they were doing their thing, and I would still respect it.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss Chris DeGarmo. I mean, he was the guy who wrote a lot of those tracks in the older days, and the guitar player. And I like the lineup that they have now. I do. I mean, I think Parker Lundgren was a great addition to step in and fill his shoes. And Todd LaTorre vocalist-wise, I mean, I don't think you could ask for a better singer than that guy. I mean, his heart's into it.
Yeah.
His spirit's into it. He's a super cool, down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
The fans love him. He's got a great voice, and like I said, he's kind of grown into that role. I think maybe initially in the beginning he felt pressure to just nail the songs and do all the old classics, as close as he could, as good as he could, but now that he's recorded and wrote albums, with the band, he's had time to mature and come into his own with Queensryche and put his own thumbprint, or his own stamp on Queensryche, and I think he's just done a phenomenal job doing that.
Yeah, what's interesting about it is, like you said, back when Queensryche initially started, 84, 85, they were no doubt a metal band. I mean, and it's almost like for a number of years, like you said, they kind of were all over the place, and people even started calling them like a progressive rock band, and it was kind of hard to pigeonhole exactly what they were. And with Todd Latour in the band now, they've kind of gone back to their metal roots, and it's kind of interesting because I was surprised how easy the fans took to him right away. It didn't seem like even the diehard fans of the original band, it seemed like they took to him pretty quickly, and I think that's maybe because they returned to more of a metal sound.
Yeah, and not only that, performance-wise, I mean, if you watch any of the stuff on YouTube, or if you ever go see them play live, you could see it in the band's faces, the smiles on their faces, and they were enjoying themselves again. They wanted to be up there playing them songs, and they were having a good time, and it shows, and that's infectious. When you go see a band and they're really enjoying it, they're really into what they're doing, that's contagious to the crowd. It just is, you know, and people see through that, man. If you're up there faking it, then something's got to change, they made changes for the better, in my opinion. Yeah,
and they were still out there, just playing nothing but the material from the original lineup. I mean, they'd kind of be like an oldies act, whereas they're continuing to put out great new music. And I dare say that there's obviously more songs with Jeff Tate on them, but they've got about an equal number of songs, I would say, from each era of the band. Like, if you go see the band live, they do a great job as far as the set list they come up with. Old and new.
Oh yeah. They mix a lot of the old stuff in with the new too. Absolutely, and they sound great live. I seen them with Scorpions a few years back, and it was a killer concert, man. They sounded great.
Yeah,
they really did. And like I said again, you can see it with their interactions and how they interact on stage, that they're enjoying it and they want to be there, and it shows.
And getting back to Chris DeGarmo, the original guitar player, he was a big part of the songwriting. He's a big part of the original sound of the band, and I think the very last album he did, I think, was Promised Land, which was another kind of more of a lean towards progressive rock and stuff, and kind of a little different. It's kind of like a tribute to the Indian style of music, and that's like the last thing he's ever done, and he kind of disappeared from the music world after that.
And again, it was kind of a bummer, and they're there for a little while. They had a couple of albums, and it was just like, man, I kind of thought, what are they doing? Get Chris DeGarmo back, but they've come full circle, and they got a great lineup now, and they sound better than ever, in my opinion. I don't really like getting into a lot of the band politics, and said this and he said that, but I mean, it's unavoidable, and people are all familiar with the big upset where Jeff Tate was fired from the band, and there were lawsuits, and I mean, it got nasty. It really did.
Well,
that's unfortunate. That those kind of things do happen. In the professional world, but they moved on and did a great job. And again, I was a fan of Jeff Tate. I kind of lost some respect for him. Throughout this whole process, and without getting too much into that, but it is what it is, and when he made statements like that he's only doing metal because opera doesn't pay what metal does and stuff like that, I kind of lost respect for the guy. I'm sorry, I did. And again, like I said, you can see the look on their faces, and their performance says it all. With Todd, it's like they're a new band.
Yeah, really is like he really brought a lot of fresh blood into the band, and you know, and an interesting thing about what you were saying is, you know, the lawsuit and everything. That's why they call it the music business. I mean, it taught me a lot of things because naturally I thought, well, wait a minute, how can this guy be fired from his own band? He was the one that formed the band. He was a founding member, but then you come to find out, no, it's not so cut and dry. You know, when these bands are formed, they're like a business, and each person gets a certain percentage of vote, and you know, if you have more people on your side, just because you were a founding member doesn't mean you can't get fired. You know, it's an interesting way to learn about business, the music business.
Yeah. There's lots of ways of, you know, bands do things differently, and things are set up, you know, a little bit differently. Some things are kind of pretty much the way they are, but you know, every band's at least a little bit different, and you know, that's why they have lawyers and people that, you know, battle that out and sort all that kind of stuff out, you know. But I'm glad it turned out the way that it did, and that that the guys, you know, Eddie Jackson and Michael Wilton and Scott Rockenfield kept the name Queensryche, and they got Todd in the band, I think, and Parker as well. I think, like I said, I think they got a stellar lineup. I think all those guys are amazing musicians and sound great, you know. And recently Scott had left the band. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but I think it was the last Queensryche album. Todd actually played the drums in the studio.
Oh yeah,
Todd's also a drummer, not just a singer.
Yeah, I heard of that. That's interesting. I guess because they couldn't find a new drummer in time for the recording of the album. But yeah, you know, and like you were saying with Jeff, he's a very talented vocalist in his own right now. What's kind of interestingly, now he in the lawsuit, he the thing he got was, okay, well, the other guys get to keep a name, but we'll allow you to kind of, you can use the name Operation Mindcrime, you can perform those 2 albums, which, you know, especially the first one was like probably the biggest other album they ever had besides Empire, and so he kind of got the right to kind of, you can go perform as Operation Mindcrime, you can perform songs from these 2 albums. And I guess the other band really doesn't care if they get to perform Operation Mindcrime live in concert ever again. But he kind of got stuck with that. They got the
I mean, he got his cut of the pie. Like, again, I'm sure, you know, lawyers get involved in all of that, and you know, they look at the numbers and the success and the sales, and you know, and that's probably more along the lines of what his attorneys and his team was looking at, and they went for that, you know.
I guess both sides, like you said, got some. The interesting thing, though, like I think Queensryche, the band, you know, with Todd, I think they scored bigger even than Jeff Tate. I'll tell you why, because you know, Jeff has put out 3 pretty good albums as Operation Mindcrime, but interestingly enough, I'm kind of interested to see like what is next, because he's already said the 3 Operation Mindcrime albums after the 3rd one, which he's already put out, was like a trilogy. That's the end of that. So he hasn't really said what's next, or is he going to just become a solo artist, or what? So that's what I'm waiting to see. What's next for him?
I mean, it's hard to say. You know, the guy's a great, fantastic singer. I mean, I love him. Vocal from a vocal inspiration point. You know, it's undoubtedly he left his mark on me as a singer, you know. And I respect him, I do, I absolutely do. But it's unfortunate how all of that played out, you know, and everything that happened to that band. You know, they were such a phenomenal band, you know, and it's crazy how just, you know, things work out, you know. And like I said, I can't imagine a better lineup of Queensryche than right now. They sound amazing, and the songs they're writing are awesome and great, and they're awesome live. And again, I'll reiterate that point one more time. You can see it live. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. When you go see those guys live, they're running around, they're smiling ear to ear, they're enjoying themselves again. They're up there happier than they've ever been. I mean,
I think that has a big part to do with it, because by the time Jeff Tate was let go, I mean, they hated him, and he hated them equally. And you know, could you imagine going to see a band play where everybody kind of hates each other, and you can feel the vibes? Probably the audience could feel the vibes. You know, it's and then I think a lot of people, as far as Jeff kind of feel like you, Joe, because it's interesting. I think fans have been much more accepting of Todd in Queensryche than they have of Jeff. I mean, it seems like Queensryche gets a lot more press, a lot more coverage.
That's something unique about our show together, brother.
Yeah.
We shoot from the hip. None of this stuff is scripted.
Yeah.
None of this stuff we plan out, really.
Yeah.
We talk from our hearts and as metal fans, you know. And a lot of people play the politics of it and play the safe game, you know. And I'm just not into that, and I don't care. I got nothing to gain and nothing to lose. I'll tell you what I think. You know what I mean? And that's really honestly what it comes down to. And that's what people want to hear. At least I think that they should want to hear. Yeah. You know, the truth.
I'm going to tell you a funny story about that, Joe. What you just said. When I first started doing these interviews, it's got to be at least 15 years ago. I used to, at the very beginning, because I'd never done it before, of course. I try to be all prepared, and I sit down. Okay, I think out what I'm going to ask, and I tell you, when after a while I started listening back to it, and you know, it sounds very robotic. It sounds like it just sounds good.
It's not full of life. It's not alive anymore.
And then,
it's a Frankenstein that you created.
Yeah, and I got thinking, you know, and then the more I did, I started to realize. The more you talk like this, like you're talking to your best friend or somebody, you know, and we can talk like this, I think, too, because we have a common interest in this type of music, you know, and and then like the bands we've discussed, if I'm not necessarily, you know, as knowledgeable, let's say, as you, I'll kind of educate myself. I'll look up information before we do the show. So, and then what I don't know, you kind of educate me on. So that's why I think it's cool that we're doing this.
Yeah, it's fun, absolutely. And again, you know, Queensryche needs no introduction. I mean, everybody, unless you've been living under a rock, everybody's heard of them at least.
Yeah,
you know? So, their life went on after Empire, though, you know. And if you're not familiar with the albums that Todd sang on and the new Queensryche, definitely give it a listen, because there's some great stuff, fantastic songwriting, and just some awesome stuff, man.
Now I'm going to ask you, because obviously before Empire was such a huge hit, the original Operation Mindcrime came out, and then they eventually years later released Operation Mindcrime 2. Now my question to you, do you think there was a need for an Operation Mindcrime 2, or do you think one would have been enough?
Well, for me, it's pretty tough to follow up on that. I mean, they set the bar pretty damn high with that record. And so it was a very risky move. I think that they could have done it more justice, in my opinion. You know, some of the stuff that I've heard after the breakup from Jeff Tate, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of it. I don't think it's very good. I'm not impressed by it. I don't like it. It doesn't hit me like Queensryche does. And it's not the same. And maybe it shouldn't be. You know, I get that. You know, people might say that. You know, but I wasn't a big fan of it. You know, I'm not familiar with every album and every song and every track, but the stuff that I have, you know, checked out and listened to, I was just kind of like, man, you know, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, it's almost like
it just wasn't the same. It's just like watered down, you know, big time.
Yeah, it's like I listened to some of it, and it was almost like Jeff Tate attempting to do Pink Floyd, and the other thing with it, I guess what I was asking is, you know, the original Operation Mindcrime album that Queensryche did. You know, that was such a huge hit, and then years later they followed that album up with Operation Mindcrime 2, and the big selling point with that was supposed to be like the late great Ronnie James Dio. He did a speaking part on that, and that was kind of a cool thing to have. But I think Operation Mindcrime 1, we could have just that would have been done enough. And you know, it's based on some concept. They were supposed to, I think, originally do like a movie for it. That would have been cool if they would have actually, you know, done a movie. But I guess that part of it
never panned out. Yeah, that's a cool idea. That's a really cool idea. That would have been awesome. You know, you know, the Operation Mindcrime tour. That's what they did. They had the video screens, and you know, they added all those visual effects. You know, which was awesome too. You know, not too many bands were really doing stuff like that when they did it. But I would love to hear this Queensryche, the modern day now Queensryche, do an Operation Mindcrime. That, in my opinion, that would be really cool.
Now, I don't think you will. And the funny part of that is because of that lawsuit, I don't think the original band's allowed to perform any of that material. You know, that's kind of what Jeff got out of the deal, and they can perform any other Queensryche, material, obviously. But I think those two albums, Operation Mindcrime 1 and 2, I don't think they're allowed to, which is kind of funny because you're like, well, wait a minute, that's part of the catalog. But that was
they could be poetic or a little tongue-in-cheek about it, and mix the title up. But true Queensryche fans would know. There's they could find a way around that if they thought hard enough. I'm sure they're intelligent guys, and if they wanted to, but they don't need to. I mean, their songwriting game is on par. I mean, it's. Yeah, they're on top of their game, very much so. In my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's when things started to go sour with Jeff, because I think at one point his wife and daughter were managing the band. He wanted to be in control of everything. He wanted to do all the songwriting, and eventually I think the band kind of said, no, we're not going for that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true or not, but I also heard that Parker Lundgren was
his son-in-law. Son-in-law, actually, yeah. And then I guess...
I've read that a couple of times. Like, again, I don't know that that's true, but, boy, talk about an awkward, uncomfortable situation for that guy.
I think I actually heard Jeff Tate talking about it where, like, they fired me, they fired my wife and daughter as the manager, and then the guitar player, him and my daughter split up, but he stayed with the band. I guess he got the better deal, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, he made a smart move, in my opinion.
Yeah. And just think about this guy Parker Lundgren. He nobody knew who he was before he ever played a gig with Queensryche. But what a great gig to get, I mean,
yeah, just walk right into being in Queensryche.
And
being cool. Yeah.
And I think even today, probably Todd Latour gets more recognized than Parker does. But how cool to have that ability to be in a band of that caliber, and you can go out and not get recognized as your other bandmates.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to Todd, I don't know how many people actually know this too, but when Todd was offered the gig for Queensryche, he was still a member of Crimson Glory. Yeah. And Queensryche basically told him that there would be a conflict of interest because Todd wanted to do both.
Yeah.
And so he was told that, Queensryche was... it's a kind of an all-for-nothing type of deal. Yeah. Offer. So, but and that's unfortunate too because I loved what he was doing in Crimson Glory too. I've always been a big Crimson Glory fan, so I thought he was a great fit for that band as well.
Now the interesting thing about that is, I don't think Todd, from what I've read, Todd wasn't the original singer in Crimson Glory, but
no.
but a huge part of the fan base, they talk about Todd. Most people think he was the original lead singer, unless you're, of course, a diehard fan. And
right.
And so a lot of those people that were Crimson Glory fans when he was in the band, they now followed him over to Queensryche.
Well, yeah, Midnight was the original. John Patrick was the original vocalist for Crimson Glory, and then my good friend Wade Black stepped in for one album.
Oh wow, yeah.
And then they disappeared for a long time and were defunct, and then they ran across Todd. Yeah. And another interesting thing about Todd was born in the same hospital that Midnight died in.
Oh wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Just think about that for a minute. Yeah, and Todd Latour, I forget what the album was, but a few years ago he made a guest appearance on a Metal Church album.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so you have to check that out. I think that's on Rat Pack Records. You can probably look that up. But so he's kind of getting a lot more in the spotlight these days.
And for sure, yeah, for sure. And again, all you got to do is check out anything that they've done. With him in the band, the albums are fantastic. If I may leave one suggestion or one bad mark on them, it would be the artwork. And that's just from my personal point of view. Some people could care less about that, I realize. But to me, it's a big deal, man. You know, I grew up in that era, like we talked about with the Iron Maiden discussion. You know, the artwork was a big part of it, too, you know. And, you know, I get some of these records, and I look at these covers, and I think, what the fuck were they thinking? Yeah. You know, I mean, this is terrible. Yeah, I mean, you know, but the music is just so awesome that you forget all about the artwork. Yeah,
like that one album I was talking about, for example, Promised Land. I didn't even know what that was, an album cover, just kind of a plain brown album. It's supposed to have something to do with Indians, but I didn't quite pick up on that. I mean, I remember they had another one where I don't even remember the name of the album, but they had like soldier shoes. It was a salute to the army or something, or the soldiers or the troops, and it's like, okay, what is this? What does this have to do?
They went in strange directions, I guess. Yeah. With the artwork, and then I mean, it just didn't grow on me. It didn't stick with me. Another one is QUEENSRYCHE Condition Human.
Oh yeah.
It's a great record. There's a lot of good songs on it, but the artwork's just like, man, really? I mean, it's kind of almost depressing.
QUEENSRYCHE is an interesting band, also in the sense that as great as some of the music is, they really lacked an image, and I'll tell you what I mean. Now, when the band first came out, if you look at any of the photos from back in the day, they had a real metal look to what they were doing, obviously, but kind of very much like Iron Maiden. A lot of times, if you'd see QUEENSRYCHE on an album, like it'd be on the back cover, they'd have some weird, like looking artwork, like you said, on the front, and you're like, what is this? Very much like you'd see an Iron Maiden album. And I think most people know more what Eddie looks like unless you flip the album cover over, you know, because even to this day, Iron Maiden's never had a band photo on any of their album on the front of album covers, and that's, I guess, to create kind of a mystique about the band. But I remember, that's why when I remember picking up Number of the Beast first time that came out, and just the album cover itself, you know, Big Eddie and the Devil and all this. I'm like, what is this, man? I gotta, not even haven't heard a lick of the music. I'm like, I gotta get this.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's it. You hit the nail on the head, man. You know, even with social media and the way things are, everything's so accessible. Yeah. Everything's shoved in your face. The mystique is lost. So you know, a little bit of that explains why the era that we grew up in changed so much, you know, because all of those qualities are now gone.
And I'll tell you, you know, talk about artwork, like for example, with your Dragonlore album, I seen how detailed you were with the album cover, and anybody looking at that, even if they've never heard a lick of Dragonlore, there's no doubt that's a metal band, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks. Yeah. Drake Mafesta, a local artist here from Chicago, a good friend of ours, a good friend of mine, did that. He's also done a couple of the last few Scream King records, and I mean, he's if you need artwork, he's a phenomenal guy. Look him up. I mean, he's worked with Symphony X and a lot of other big name bands, and he's just a phenomenal artist. Great guy to work with, man. Super talented.
Wow. And, you know, the other thing about QUEENSRYCHE, like, I remember when I first heard the band, like, you hear the name, QUEENSRYCHE, what is that? You know, it's like just one word, it's kind of simple, but it makes you think, what is this?
Well, it is a different and strange name, you know, and going back to like what you were talking about, like with the image and everything too. I mean, I think that was very much a product of the times, and the business people side of it, you know, kind of told them, you know, you got to look like this, you know, you got to fit in, you got to, you know, and that's basically what they were doing, you know, they were trying to find their way, you know, and now they're just, you know, they're just being themselves, you know. It really shows, you know. They're comfortable in their own skin.
See, I think they finally are at a place where you got a band where all the guys get along with one another. There's no hate, there's no bad vibes going on. I mean, I remember hearing about like the nasty vibes where right before they let Jeff go, he spit at one of the guys backstage or something. Again, this just And I even heard him talking about it. Like on That Metal Show with Eddie Trunk years ago, and he was like, I don't really want to talk about that yet, but I'll admit, there were some bad vibes, even on my part, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but, you know, when it gets to that point where, you know, you're spitting at your bandmates backstage, maybe it's time to. It really is time to go your separate ways. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Again, you know, like I said, I normally typically try not to let those type of things encroach upon my listening pleasure. But it does. I'm human, you know. And I know if I was those guys in his band, I'd be pretty. And I know a lot of drummers would beat the shit out of him for doing that. So he's pretty lucky, actually. That he wasn't playing with some of the drummers I know.
and sadly, I think in some ways he's kind of paid for that in the sense that, like we're saying, you know, the new QUEENSRYCHE, they've got good vibes going. Fans are accepting what they're doing. Really, they're firing on all cylinders. And then we have Jeff Tate that, he may have been, you know, won the Operation Mindcrime name and been able to use that and perform original QUEENSRYCHE albums and then call his new band Operation Mindcrime. But see, he's not really firing on all cylinders, like we said. He's put out three kind of albums. If you like that stuff, okay. But even the diehard Jeff Tate fans didn't react to it the way QUEENSRYCHE fans are reacting to the new QUEENSRYCHE. And I don't know if I necessarily believe, like he put out a press statement and said after his last, all these Operation Mindcrime albums, it was part of a trilogy. I'm not going to release anything under Operation Mindcrime name again. That's all I'm going to do with that. I don't know what lies ahead. Maybe it'll be a solo album or something. But see, he hasn't done anything since, and there could be a lot of reasons for that with what's going on with COVID-19 and all this. But I don't see like the loyal Jeff Tate fans really waiting around. He did. I remember there's something on Frontiers Records came out about a year ago with some foreign singer. I can't even tell you what the name of the band was or the album. I remember hearing about it, but you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really, like I said, it's just it shows when your heart's into it, man. And to me, you know, when I read the statement from Jeff Tate that that he really only does metal because it doesn't pay what metal pays better than opera. And that's why he's doing it. You know, and it was just like, wow, man, just came right out and said it. Unbelievable, you know. And I just kind of lost some respect for him. I mean, again, I'll say it, you know, that he's a phenomenal singer, and he definitely had a huge influence on me, especially earlier on in my metal upbringings, you know. But it wasn't so much just Jeff Tate. Now I realize that it was the band QUEENSRYCHE, and he was a part of that back then, you know. So I respect him in that respect. But you know, as for his behavior and the lawsuit and all of that, it just left a nasty taste in my mouth. And I reluctantly listened to some of the stuff, but I tried to like it. I tried to be open-minded to it, and I just didn't think it was that great.
You got to be honest, and I'll be honest. When they first went their separate ways, I was like, "How the hell are they ever going to replace Jeff Tate?" You know, he's such a powerhouse vocalist. I mean, like you were saying, I put him.
Surprised, man. There's some underground singers out there that are just unbelievable, amazing. Like
one guy that comes to mind when you say that is I don't know if you know who the band Dangerous Toys is. The singer Jason McMaster. Mm-hmm. He has a lot of great other bands he does, but he's just a great overall vocalist. And I'll tell you, he's one of the guys I think. They say Axl Rose did a great job of stepping in for Brian Johnson, you know, doing AC/DC. But I think Jason McMaster he would have been the perfect guy to fill that role because he's got that AC/DC vibe going.
Yeah, he could have done it. I think so too.
Yeah. But it's like you said, there's so many great underground singers that people aren't even aware of. And that's kind of what I enjoy about, you know, interviewing the bands like I do, because that's how I discover great guys like you. Just, you know, we first come, you know, I reach out to you, we become friends, we start talking about stuff, I interview you, and then it's like, oh boy, this guy really knows his metal.
I don't know about that, man. I'm just an old school metalhead, you know, that picked up things along the way and enjoy talking about it, enjoy learning about it, and just submerge myself into it. And,
so,
you know, it's kind of my little world too, you know.
Yeah. Now, while you're not maybe on the same level as like a QUEENSRYCHE, but I will say this: I got to tell people you've got such a loyal fan base that you know we did episode 1, which was we were talking about Blood of the Nations, a great Accept album, you know, kind of their new era of their band. We were talking about the success they've had with that. and then we were posting so people would check it out, and a lot of people were liking it, and we were kind of noticing that, okay, you guys are liking it, but I don't see that anybody's actually gone and listened to it. And then all of a sudden we got like right away 14 people. Okay, well sure, we'll go check it out. That's how loyal the Joe Lawson fan base is. I got to tell people.
Well, I'm pretty blessed. I am, man, and I've met some great people, over the span of what I've been doing, and they've stuck it out with me and keep in touch with me, and I greatly appreciate that, and it means the world to me. It truly does.
And let me ask you, Joe, while we're still doing tonight's episode, you as a musician that's toured and you got your various projects, do you got any story you like to share tonight with the fans, like that really stands out to you? It could be like meeting a fan. It could be something that happened to you in the studio while you're on the road. You got a crazy road story?
Sure. We were in New Mexico. I was on tour with Blind Rage, and of course we didn't have the money to all of us get our fancy little hotel rooms and our red M&Ms and everything. So we all pile in a room and sleep in the van sometimes. Whatever we got to do. And so this particular time, this hotel manager's coming around, banging on doors, waking everybody up. Wow. And we're all piled in there. We snuck in. There's like one or two people that supposedly rented the room, but there's like 8 people in there. And so we're trying to wake everybody up as fast as we can, and we're throwing stuff in the van. And this guy comes out and he starts chasing the van down the road, and he grabs the door handle to open the door, and he was that close to opening the back of the van door. And I was really young and kind of immature, but it was fun. And I was towards the back of the van with my pants down, shooting him the moon. Wow! So I almost ended up ass first in the middle of the highway in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Wow!
Now you just have to write a song about that, huh?
Yeah. You never know. It could end up somewhere.
Yeah, now let me ask you before we wrap this up tonight. We were talking a little bit about Empire and Operation Mindcrime. That's when QUEENSRYCHE started being all over MTV, and a lot of diehard fans start accusing them of like going commercial, not being so metal anymore. What do you think about like when bands try to have that radio hit or try to go a little more commercial? Does that turn you off at all, or what do you think about when fans start accusing them of
selling out?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If you can do it and remain true to your roots, and true to what you are as a band, and it's still successful, a good band. I think a good band to use as an example for that would be Megadeth. Oh yeah. They've had several albums that were commercial successes, but at the same time, I think that they remained true to who they were, as a band and as musicians, and they still gave fans what the fans wanted and expected to hear from them. Yeah. They were able to find that fine line, if you will.
Yeah.
Some bands, it's just obvious, and it's just disgusting and sick when they do it. And some bands find success at it. Again, the biggest thing that I think is you just got to be true to yourself. If you want people to like what you're doing and get into it, then you got it too, man. Your heart really has to be into it. And if it isn't, it shows. It just does. And it's going to wear thin, and people are going to get sick of it.
And I think Megadeth, what happened with them is they just finally found success. Success finally came their way. I think they, like you said, they stayed true to who they were. I mean, Dave Mustaine's always been very outspoken. He's true to who he is. I remember like his former band Metallica getting accused of like when they put out that Black album, oh my God. They said they'd never do a music video. Oh my God, they lied. They're all over MTV now. All the Metallica's being played all over radio. And the next album, Load. Oh my God, they got short hair. They're selling out. They're not metal. They got short hair. I'm like, okay. So they cut their hair. They're a little older. But if the songs are good, and I don't know if it's selling out, but to me, okay, if that's what kind of your dream is, to grow up and be in a rock band and make music and write songs, and all of a sudden your stuff is all over MTV and all over the radio. Oh, okay, somebody's liking the stuff,
Absolutely. absolutely. And something that, maybe from a fan's perspective they don't think about or they don't know about is the pressure that a band faces with record labels and management and, business people. Of course, they're in this to make money, I mean, they can tell you they love your band and they think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, but when it really comes down to it, they're business people.
And
if the money's not there, they're not going to be either. That's, and everything comes and goes, fads and fashions coming in and out, and so bands are under a tremendous amount of pressure when a lot of money is on the line. That if they don't perform well, then that's it. They're done.
I'll tell you, Joe, a funny story. I was on the internet all week, and I've been seeing these little ads and people have been making where it says like, 2020 is the 38th anniversary of MTV, if you can believe that. But they only played, but get this, they only played music on MTV for 14 of those 38 years. So like, so like MTV actually, if you think about, they actually sold out and became a real network, because what really kind of killed MTV was not even grunge music or anything. It was the fact that when they had that show, The Real World, started getting great ratings and stuff, so then they started doing nothing but reality TV. I came across MTV the other day, but only reason I knew it, it said MTV Network, but it was like the Basketball Diaries or something. And so now I could see if you have success with something like that, but why do you have to you're originally like a music video channel. Why can't we do that too and maybe have one or two reality shows, But they kind of just sold. That's my idea of selling out. And final question for you, Joe, since we're talking about Queensryche. Like when Queensryche, like I said early on, they had you look at pictures from back, they look like a real hardcore metal band. And their music, like we're talking about Rage for Order and stuff like that, it was really full-blown on metal. Now, when they got to the time, started doing like Operation Mindcrime and Empire, and they're making all these music videos all over radio and MTV. What did you have a problem with all these videos? Did you have a problem with the band kind of changing their image and doing all these?
No, I think that's a natural progression, and that a band should do that to some degree. Every time you put a record out, you got to give the fans what they expect, but at the same time, you got to give them something fresh. If it's just the same thing over and over again, what's the point? And video is very big now, especially now. I mean, it's huge. And I understand, I get it. People connect on a different level than they used to, and I think you can do a lot of really cool things with video. I enjoy it. I think it's a great thing. I don't think it's a bad thing.
In fact, your band Dragonlore recently did a video for one of the tracks off the latest album. Can you discuss that at all, or tell us what was it?
Yeah, that was just a little teaser clip that we put out
that's
of some demo material that we're working on, and we just wanted to let people get a little taste of the direction the band's going in, and the sound of the music, with different players and stuff. It's a little different, but it's really cool, and so we just wanted to share a little bit of that with people, and we'll keep doing that, along the way, updates here and there,
So even as an independent artist, you see the importance of music video now. What's interesting to me, I'd like to get your thoughts on YouTube, because YouTube, I mean, I've seen guys where, like, for example, there's this guitar player I follow. He's an independent artist himself, Maxwell Carlisle, very, like, one of these real great shredder type guys, and he directs videos for other people, and he just became so huge on YouTube. Like, he do these guitar instructional videos, and like he did this thing where he kind of buried this guitar, and if you go on his YouTube channel, he buried a guitar like for 30 days to see what kind of shape it would be in. And he told me, I just started putting these videos up on YouTube, and he goes, I'd never been to NAMM before. When people started seeing my stuff, and I actually started getting invited to go down to NAMM. People started wanting to endorse me, and he still puts out, like great music, like I said, like guitar shredder type of music. But he became such a huge star just on YouTube, and it shows you, like, if you know what you're doing, you can become successful.
Oh yeah. I mean, video is a huge medium, and you can reach a lot of people with it. I mean, it's necessary for bands nowadays. It's expensive, to do good videos and edit them, and get them all, to get it to look right, and to get it to look professional. but that's that goes without saying. That's with anything. You got to put some money into it and invest in it. If you want other people to take it serious, you need to too.
Yeah, because what's sad about like what happened to MTV, like we were talking about, is that used to be a place you could go and if you were a rap, they used to have like Yo MTV Raps. They had Headbangers Ball. They had all these other outlets, but so people could see their bands and stuff back in the day. They no longer, and then VH1 kind of became a nice alternative, but even they went like MTV. Eventually, they just turned all reality, and it's a very sad state. But the interesting thing, like you said, now there's YouTube. Bands are able to kind of, even the bands that can't afford it as much, they're still able to put together a nice little video. And if you got diehard fans that'll follow you, like you do, Joe, anytime you post a video or something, people will go and check that out. It's a great way to market yourself, and you don't necessarily have to have a high budget like you did back in the day when your video played on MTV. And in many ways, I think a lot of our record companies screwed themselves because you can even put together a nice lyric video. That's what a lot of bands are doing these days, where they don't even have to have a performance video, just a lyric video.
Yeah, those are effective and efficient and pretty simple to do. We're putting for Scream King, we've put a couple of videos together that we're working on, and one of them, Raphael, our guitar player, did from his iPhone.
Wow!
I mean, that's how far technology's come. It's unbelievable, and you see it, and you're going, it's just like I can't believe that was done on a phone. It's just like, really, holy shit.
I mean, people are doing videos, and even Richie Kotzen, the singer from Winery Dogs, he filmed a video, like very professional looking video, just with his iPhone, like you said. It's amazing what people, and as you know, Joe, when you're recording stuff, you don't need to really be in a professional. People are got their home studios. You don't even have to be in the same room. Like one member of a band might live in another state than another, but you can send your stuff back and forth, and it comes out sounding great. Absolutely. Now, I want to thank you once again, Joe, for taking time to do this. People have been listening to This Is Metal on Chaotic Riffs Magazine's website, and this is the second episode we've done. And Joe and I have already talked about, folks, that next time we do this for episode 3, we're going to be talking about Dee Snider. That's going to be an interesting talk, because I'm a huge Dee Snider fan, Twisted Sister fan.
Yes,
and
me too.
There's so much to talk. Dee Snider is such a character. I mean, I know one thing I know about him is he's a huge Alice Cooper fan, and back in 1985, he helped Alice kind of have a comeback, and Twisted Sister put Alice Cooper in their video. And we'll be talking about that, but Dee he's been all over the place. Besides Twisted Sister, he's kind of had a failed solo career, and then he had a huge solo album came out like a couple of years ago for The Love of Metal, and that's going to be our main focus. But like I was sharing with you through the email earlier today, Dee has also done some of these horror movies. He's had a radio metal show, like he's been a DJ. So he's been all over the place. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. Looking forward to it.
Okay, well, Joe, you have a nice rest of the night, and is there anything you'd like to say to the folks out there listening to this before we wrap it up?
Yeah, go get your QUEENSRYCHE on.
Oh yeah, and maybe you folks can let us know, on Joe's fan page, like what's your favorite QUEENSRYCHE album, and maybe one day we can talk about that specifically, in its detail. But thanks for doing this, Joe, and we'll be doing episode 3 probably next week. Take care. Bye bye.
Okay, you too.